Today's passages offer tough, complicated, and confusing stories to some degree. And my goal in giving this sermon today is for you to feel how change has thrust us into the wilderness like them. And that there is hope. There is hope in the wilderness. 40 years of wandering. Those 40 years followed 400 years of slavery for the Israelites in Egypt before they entered the Promised Land. Those 40 years were God's punishment for their unbelief and disobedience after they refused to enter that Promised Land, because they rebelled against God by wanting to return to Egypt instead of facing new challenges. And that is key to understand and to hear for today. They wanted to return to the familiar. They couldn't accept the new. They wanted to go back to what they knew instead of going forward to what God had. But God uses this time to prepare them, to foster their growth. This time humbled them, taught them to rely on God's daily provision, and instilled a new sense of identity and faith to help them take on the challenges of what came next. The wilderness served as a development ground that taught them to trust God's power, about the importance of faith, and that God was with them even in the wilderness. That's important because we too are in the wilderness. Things are changing, and it's not clear how long our 40 days will be. Change. Change happens to us. It is often beyond our control. And then we get to choose. How deep do we go with what has happened and what it is doing to us? How honestly we acknowledge lack of control. If we can resist the urge to move past that change too quickly before we have actually learned from it. Today, I want you to feel like the Israelites. I want you to be curious about their experience and what they learned and what we might learn. That is hard. It's scary. It is so big. It's hard because it might take you to a deeper place with some tough inner work. But we need to go to those places as people of faith. And this is a space to do that. We are not in the exact same situation as the Israelites, but we do share with them a sense of immense change with more questions than answers. We have in common a sense of time and unknown events that will decide the future. We are wandering about, seeking to exist as well as we can and asking, what comes next? Who can we rely on? For many of us, but not all of us, this time feels very different. Earlier this year, I went on a racial healing tour of the Deep South with other faith leaders. As we learned about histories and struggles that impact the ongoing work for equality and talked about new political realities, one black leader said, "Blacks and other minorities have known the feeling of being targeted, at risk, vulnerable, and without power for so long. Now everyone, even whites, may know that in new ways." Wilderness. Things are different now. Adjustment is hard, but we have community. So this is a very new time for many of us. like it was for the Israelites. Sit with that for a second. The newness. Feel what it does to you, thinking about your own situation or theirs. Don't worry about the details of their journey, of parsing these scriptures and understanding all the exegesis and fancy words. Just try to be in touch with the fact that they, or any group of people, how they might feel at one of these times, how you feel at these times. See how that relates to where you are. See how it feels to connect with that. Where do you feel their journey? How are you with recent changes that now define so much of life? Keep sitting with that. What does that do to you? Now take a big breath. I know this is not fun, but I believe it could be very helpful. We need to take advantage of time in unique, supportive community to go to places like that, to go to this place. There may not be any other space in which you can truly do that in this way. Think about it. If you're lucky, maybe you do have other spaces. But what I'm inviting you to today, you probably don't get that invitation a lot, and you probably don't have the place and space and people to do it with. And that is a reason to hope. And there will be more reasons if you bear with me. Political and cultural change, catching us off guard. But we know we have a voice. We want better leaders, so we will count the days until elections. But that's not all we should do. How else should we be? And what if elections don't fix things? Church change. Westmoreland's pastoral search may not be going exactly according to plan. We trust the pastoral search committee. They are doing hard, tough work. But what if we don't get the right settled pastor on the right timeline? What if all the details don't come together as we wish? And with the broader church around this country, maybe even around the world, denominations and local churches like ours changing, what kind of new wilderness might we be in? A recent Axios article says that the U.S. could see an unprecedented 15,000 churches shut their doors this year. 15,000 churches. The National Council of Churches estimates that 100,000 U.S. churches will close during the next several years. 100,000. That would amount to roughly a quarter of the nation's 350 to 400,000 churches today. The decline in traditional brick and mortar churches comes as a record number of Americans, almost 30%, are identifying as religiously unaffiliated. And as 62% identify as Christians, which is down from 78% in 2007. A lot of you know this. You know it here or you sense it. And finally, another 15,000 U.S. churches will move from full to part-time pastors because of the realities, the dynamics. Change. So with our cultural, political, church, social changes going on, what do we expect from traditional leaders and systems? And is that reasonable? How open are we to engaging the wilderness in new ways, with different ways of being community and church? Or do you just want to go back to the way it was before? When you grew up, when you raised your family, before COVID, all of that. You just want to go back, pick a point in time? That didn't work so well for the Israelites. God didn't really appreciate it. Instead, he wanted them to trust and grow. And maybe we can't figure out what growth means on our own. Maybe our usual ways of developing action plans just won't work like they have in the past. I think maybe the best thing we can do right now is to really be with change. And here's the good news. You may be perfectly positioned to enter your own version of the Israelites' 40 years. You may be perfectly positioned to explore your needs with their story and with God. So here it is. I asked you earlier to think about how this time feels to you, what it does to you. Now I'm going to introduce a way that you can engage what 40 years of change maybe means to you. There is a form of Ignatian prayer that invites Christians to immerse themselves in a biblical setting and scene, to transport, to place yourself in a different time and place, and use those scenes and how God works with you to get some practical fruit for your life, to figure out what does this mean for me and where I am on my journey. And it's thought that over 50% of churchgoers are able to engage this way of prayer pretty easily. And the goal of this practice is to make scriptures come alive, sort of like our readers did today. Come alive, see it, know it. Come alive so that we can make a personal application to our lives. So today I'm going to invite you just to dip your toe in this way of prayer and see what it does to you as you leave here. If you're comfortable doing so, please close your eyes. Place yourself with the Israelites as they are wandering. Be in their midst. What are they wearing? What are they doing? What do they smell like? Are they bumping into you? Are they irritating you? Are they loud? Are they sad? Are they crying? What do their faces look like? And what's the landscape like? What does the ground feel like on your feet? Maybe you don't have shoes on. What's it doing to them if they've been walking for a while? Any animals around? Is it raining? Is it scorching hot? Be there. Pay attention. And pay attention to what you feel. And now, see your own life in rhythms. Feel those. And see if you feel a connection to these people who wandered, like we wander, like you wander. Now gently come back and open your eyes if you'd like. This is where you do things like that. You may not get to do them anywhere else this week. You do that in a community of faith that is open to something bigger, open to how God works with wandering people, and that can at least have some trust or desire to trust in God and hope for what will be. It's hard, but it's necessary for the spiritual life. And necessary if we want to be ready for what comes and what perhaps we help create after we understand what this change really means for us. And just because we pray doesn't mean we are all settled and peaceful. You're not going to walk out of here at peace today. There is still a role for angst and complaint and confusion and all that stuff. The Lord spoke to Moses, "I have heard the complaining of the Israelites. Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall have your fill of bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God." Amy Oden was a professor and dean at Wesley Seminary right down the road. And here's what she says about complaint. "It is here in the wilderness with no map, no resources, no food, no water to rely on that the Hebrews encounter God. The crowd turns to face the wilderness as though trying to envision the manna there, the manna from heaven. And what do they see? The glory of God. There has been nothing like this sort of encounter with Yahweh up to this point for the wandering people. It is only once the people enter the wilderness and complain that God's glory appears to them. Only once they get into that wilderness and complain does God appear. We can be real about where we are and what we need. God can handle it. God can handle it. Being real might just prepare us to receive what we need most. And that is hope. That is hope. But like the Israelites, we can't go back to the familiar. We have to accept a new way. We cannot go back. We have to accept a new way. So remember, then the Lord said to Moses, "I am going to rain bread from heaven for you. And each day the people shall go out and gather enough for the day. Remember also that when the Israelites looked toward the wilderness, the glory of the Lord appeared." In this time of change, may God give us strength, wisdom, and openness to recognize and receive enough bread from heaven. May we have the courage to seek God and trust the journey through our own wilderness. Amen.